Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Putri Rahayu Ningtiyas. So here I will explain about parallel computing. Okay, first, what is parallel computing? Parallel computing is a type of computing architecture in which several processors simultaneously execute many computations performed at the same time. The popularization of the parallel computing is started at 21st century came in response to processor frequency scaling hitting the power wall. Next, we have basic principles. So, the basic principles of the parallel computing refers to the process of breaking down large problems into smaller, independent, often similar parts that can be executed simultaneously by multiple processors communicating via shared memory, and the results of which are combined upon completion as part of an overall algorithm. Okay, next we have primary goals. The primary goals of parallel computing is to increase available computation power for the faster application processing and problem solving. This is the one why we choose parallel computing. Next, we have infrastructure of the parallel computing. Infrastructure parallel computing is typically housed within a single data center where several processors are installed in a server rack. Computation requires are distributed in small chunks by the application server that are then executed simultaneously on each server. Okay, next we have three types of parallel computing or parallelism granularity. First, we have bit parallel computing, parallelism. Increased processor word size, which reduces the quantity of the instruction the processor must execute in order to perform an operation of variable greater than the length of the word. Next, instruction level parallelism. The hardware approach works upon dynamic parallelism in which the processor decides at runtime which instruction to execute in parallel. The software approach works upon static parallelism in which the computer decides which instruction to execute in parallel. Next is text parallelism. A form of parallelism is computer code cross multiple processors. That is, run several different texts at the same time on the same data. Next, fundamental of parallel computing. Parallel application, we have explained this first. Parallel application is typically classified as the either fine-grained parallelism, in which subtext will communicate several times per second, coarse-grained parallelism, in which subtexts do not communicate several times per second, or embracing parallelism, in which subtext rarely or never communicate. Next, we have mapping. Mapping in parallel computing is used to solve embarrassing parallel problems by applying a simple operation to all elements of a sequence without requiring communicating between the subtexts. Next, class of hardware of the parallel computing. So we have four classes of parallel computing or hardware. First is multi-core processor. That is, multi-core processor is a computer processor integrated circuit with two or more separate processing cores, each of which execute program instruction in parallel. Cores are integrated into multiple die in a single chip package or into a single integrated circuit, and may implement architectures such as multi-reading, subscalar, vector, or VLIW. Okay, next, symmetric multiprocessing. Symmetric multiprocessing or multiprocessor computer hardware and software architecture in which two or more independent, homogeneous processors are controlled by a single operating system instance that treats all the processor equally, and is connected to a single shared main memory with full access to all common resource and device. Okay, next we have distributed computing. Distributed computing is a component are located on different network computer that coordinate their action by communicating via pure HTTP, RPC like connectors, and message queues. Significant character of the distributed system include independent failure of component and the concurrent of component. Next, massively parallel computing refers to the use of numerous computers or computer processors to simultaneously execute a set of computation in parallel. Next, we have what is concurrent programming. Okay, the concurrently generally refers to deal with a lot of text, event, or circumstance that are happening at the same time. Okay, for the example simply described, it's when you are doing more than one thing at the same time. This concurrent programming doesn't necessarily mean that multiple processors will be running at the same instant, but even if the result might make it seem like it. Okay, next. Next, we explain about context switching or switching process. We use context switching with meaning is the program has several texts, so we finish some parts of text 1, then continue to text 2. So the switching process is called context switching. So the text 1 is not finished yet, but we pause it and continue to text 2. Okay, next, two model of concurrent programming. So we have two models. The first is shared memory. In the shared memory model of concurrent model interact by reading and writing shared object in memory. So we use this example of this picture. This picture we explain with A might be A and B might be two processor or process cores in the same computer that sharing the same physical memory. Okay, next we have message passing. Message passing in the message passing model, concurrent models interact by sending message to each other through a communication channel. So we use this example picture. There is A and B might be a web browser and a web server. A open a connection to B and asks for a web page, and B send the web page data back to A. Okay, next we have the modules come into different kind. So different kind of the modules concurrent parallel is process and thread. A process is instead of running program that is isolated from other process on the same machine. In particular, it has its own private section of the machine memory. The process abstraction is virtual computer. It makes the program feel like it has the entire machine to itself, like a fresh computer has been created with fresh memory just to run that program. Okay, next is thread. A thread is a locus of control inside of a running program. That is, think of it as a place in the program that is being run plus the stack of methods called that led to the place to which it will be necessary to return through. The thread abstraction is represented by a virtual processor that is making a new thread simulator, make a fresh processor inside, and the virtual computer is represented by a processor. This new virtual processor runs the same program and share the same memory as other threads. Okay, next we have type of parallelism. Okay, there is three types of parallelism. Number one is bit level parallelism. Increase processor word size, which is reduce the quantity of instruction the processor must execute in order to perform an operation on variable greater than the length of the word or text large size data. For the example, we have consider a case where an 8-bit processor must add two 16-bit integers. First, the 8 lower order bit from each integer were must add by processor, then add the 8 higher order bits, and then two instructions to complete a single operation. The processor with 16-bit will be able to complete the operation with single instruction. Next, we have instruction level parallelism. That means the simultaneous execute of multiple instructions from a program. While pipelining is a form of ILP, we must exploit it to achieve parallel execution of the instruction in the instruction stream. Okay, we have a program that use a loop. This is a parallel loop. Every iteration of the loop can be overlapped with any other iteration. Although within each loop iteration that is little opportunity for overlap. Okay, for the last, text parallelism. Text parallelism is a form of parallelization of computer code across multiple processors that run several different texts at the same time on the same data. So for the example of text parallelism, might involves two threads. It's programming a unique statistical operation on the array of elements. Again, the threads are operating in parallel on separate computing core, but it's performing a unique operation. So that is for my presentation. Sorry if I have a mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.